For the second time, the Biden administration is bypassing Congress to funnel more weapons to Israel. This is the second time they've done that this month. This just came out this afternoon on Friday, December 29th.
Does it say which weapons? Or
it is a $147.5 million sale for equipment, including fuses, chargers, and primers that is needed to make the shells that Israel has already purchased. So to support the tank shells that Israel fires into hospitals and schools and homes, the Biden administration is, again, for the second time, bypassing congressional oversight. Under the ground, this is a so-called national security emergency. That's the premise of this action that Biden's taking.
Yeah, and you now have leading Democrats who are not affiliated with the squad, like Joaquin Castro, who is might have been the head of the House Foreign Relations Committee if the Democrats were in charge. He's called for a ceasefire. You have Gregory Meeks, who's always been a tool of the Israel lobby, not calling for a ceasefire. He's someone who's also sort of a senior Democrat on House Foreign Affairs. He's criticized the Biden administration for rejecting congressional oversight. That's pretty much the best this tool can do, but it's something. Lesser known figures not affiliated with the squad, Mark Takano, who is a progressive representing the Riverside area and the Inland Empire in California, which has a very high military enlistment rate and does have a substantial Republican population. He's called for a ceasefire. So the calls are emerging for a ceasefire. Biden's empire of lies is falling apart. As we've seen in a recent Gallup poll, Biden is historically unpopular heading into reelection. And it appears that the Democrats are heading for a major disaster ahead of the Democratic convention. I mean, what do you see happening there, Aaron?
Well, I mean, I don't understand what goes on inside this administration. They must see the polls. They must see that his approval ratings at this significant low. Running against Trump, who is not popular outside of his base, but yet even in the younger demographic, even among young people, which the Democrats should be sweeping, Trump is currently more popular than Biden. And I think this comes down to just the people who run this world are just, from Washington, are just so fundamentally committed to hegemony and supremacy that they can't see anything else. So they can't see peaceful alternatives. They can't see negotiating with Hamas. Back when Hamas was moderating its position and actually trying to allow some kind of peaceful accommodation with Israel tacitly, they wouldn't even tolerate that. They instead just tried to destroy Hamas and make the people of Gaza suffer with the blockade. After October 7th, rather than negotiating with Hamas for a negotiated release of hostages, both Palestinians, thousands of them in Israeli prisons, and the Israelis that were taken to Gaza, they just backed this genocidal assault. So they just can't see anything but hegemony. And even if that means undermining their own election chances, I just don't think they care.
That's a great point. It reminds me of a conversation I had coming out of a State Department briefing in October with a senior member of the press who gets access to the bullpen. It's just been there for years. And they said to me, I actually kind of feel sorry for the Biden State Department because they're in this bind. They see that Israel is carrying out this exterminationist rampage in Gaza. I mean, those weren't their words, but basically to that effect. But they can't do anything about it. That's what we keep hearing. They don't have leverage. And what he meant was that they're trapped between their base, the small d Democratic base, the people that they're supposed to represent, their actual constituents, especially their emerging base among a very multicultural, diverse future America. That's what the Democrats play on. And the donor class that is paid for Joe Biden's career. A very mediocre character who lied his way to the top, who is unbelievably corrupt. And a donor base which has contributed through the Israel lobby at least $10 million to Joe Biden's campaigns, making him the largest recipient of any active U.S. politician of Israel lobby funds. And that's who they're accountable to. I mean, it really shows what democracy in the U.S. is Biden's going to choose his donor base over this. He doesn't. You can look at what's happening at Harvard University as a microcosm, where the Harvard Corporation, which is supposed to be accountable to the financial elite, has refused to hand over Claudine Gay, this pretty mediocre Harvard president, who got caught up in this insane anti-Semitism hoax. They're refusing to hand her over as a sacrifice to the pro-Israel lobby and the financial elite, because it would set a terrible precedent. And she's the first Black Harvard president. It would just look terrible. So they can't do it. So the big donors, the billionaires like Bill Ackman, follow his Twitter account. This guy has the IQ of a toaster oven, but he's extremely rich. He's a vulture capitalist at Pershing Square. So he has the power of Harvard alumni. He's pulling $200 million out. He's building pressure with other donors. That's what would happen to Biden if he started pushing for a ceasefire, is they would try to pull the plug on his campaign from the top. So what power do the people have to pull the plug on Biden's campaign from the bottom? Because Biden, he needs to be made an example of. We're going to see that in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention, 1968, Chicago. There were the riots outside. Richard Daley, Chicago mayor's police riot against protesters of the Vietnam War. They were shut out of the convention. The convention was a complete disaster. And at that time, however, you had Bobby Kennedy Sr., who was running against the war, who had basically co-opted Eugene McCarthy's positions, was assassinated, but you had Eugene McCarthy running. Eugene McCarthy was going to end Nixon's, or campaigning to end Nixon's war. This is Joe Biden's war. And this is Vietnam. This war on Gaza is Vietnam for the young activist base of the Democratic Party, or would have been the base of the Democratic Party, the young activist progressive base of the US. This is Vietnam. You have Biden is Nixon. They're going into Chicago. Nixon was highly intelligent and devious. Biden is vacant. He stumbles around on stage. I heard someone describe him as he's like a Roomba vacuum cleaner bouncing around a room. Maybe he's the cat that sits on the Roomba. It's going to be a disaster. And it's possible that the convention will be you see these activists shutting roads down around airports, which I don't think is a wise tactic. That could be taking place in Chicago. There's going to be massive police violence. It's going to be a disaster. And they deserve it. They deserve every bit of it.
They deserve all of it. And what's their solution electorally? It's basically to try to get Trump removed from the ballot in states, as they already did in Colorado. They just did that in Maine. The
Maine one's crazy. I mean,
based on him inciting an insurrection that in fact, by the way, he never was even, and I don't care about defending Trump or getting into that because who cares, but he never was even charged with inciting an insurrection. Like Jack Smith, the prosecutor overseeing all this, could have charged him with that. He didn't. So the Biden administration, they're so desperate as a result of Biden's own policies and incompetence that their strategy now, and that of the Democratic Party, is to remove their main opponent via the most ridiculous arguments, to get him removed from the ballot based on allegations that he's never even been charged of, let alone convicted of.
Yeah, I kind of want to. The Secretary of State of Maine just created a new law on her own and then just invoked it to remove Trump from the ballot. I mean, it doesn't matter because the Democrats always win Maine.
Yeah.
But what's her name? Shenna Bellows. And it's a joke.
She used to be with the ACLU, I think. Or involved in voting rights somehow. But I don't think
she's not a lawyer.
Yeah.
She's one of these pussy hat liberal clowns who wants publicity and wants to be on this. what was that lady, Betsy? What's her name? It was one of the, remember these weird whistleblowers that came out of the agencies when Trump was first elected, and they all became famous and we'd never heard of them before. I can't even remember her name. Anyway, she's I mean, it's just it's an absurd joke, and it contributes further to the mask lifting moment that we're living through, where the empire of lies is being exposed, because the whole soft the soft power that the Biden administration wants to project, its rationale for supporting Ukraine is always to defend democracy, and that also used to be the rationale for supporting Israel. Now I don't even know what the rationale is. So Hamas is going to come and terrorize us on New Year's. I actually saw a local news report warning people not to go to New York because of possible lone wolf attacks inspired by Hamas. I mean, this is being pumped out by the Department of Homeland Security. So I don't even know how they're going to, they've pretty much given up on pushing the defense of democracy.
Yeah, that's done. Same thing within Ukraine, how we're supposed to be defending democracy against autocracy. Now the Biden administration is outright saying, look how much money we're spending on domestic military production. 90% of the money we're spending on Ukraine goes to the States. And of course, in reality, it goes to weapons profiteers. But even in Ukraine, they can't even sustain the talking point about democracy. Now it's literally, they're calling it bombonomics, of just, this is good because we're buying bombs from U.S. producers.
The mayor of Kiev or Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, basically, it was like he had heard a Grayzone live stream or something and accused Zelensky of running an authoritarian police state, banning all his rivals and throwing everyone in jail. And he said, what democracy are we fighting for? I mean, that's the possible successor to Zelensky, who runs the largest population center, so who was installed in the Maidan coup. So there you have it. What democracy? What's left for Samantha Power to say? I mean, these R2P humanitarian interventionist liberal hovercraft elites have never been in a more intellectually hermetic atmosphere where just nobody believes what they have to say. No. So the only thing left, because there isn't really a left in the United States, an anti-war left that can gain power, is Trump, or someone like Trump, who's just an unsheathed militarist who said, yeah, well, we've had a lot of killers in the United States, and, you know, we just have to kill. We got to take their oil. We have to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia because we need jobs. That's pretty much all that's left. So the mask is off. And October 7th was it brought forward the ultimate mask lifting moment for the U.S. foreign policy elite. It's never coming back on.